Welcome back for the second episode of Things I've Learned podcast. I'm Cheryl Buchanan, and today I'd like to talk to you about how tuning into my thoughts led me to think in different ways. One of the biggest lessons I've learned, which I talked about in the first episode, is we get to choose how we think and respond to, well, everything in life. And I have really learned to love that idea. Before I jump into this episode, I wanted to remind you of my intention for this podcast. My hope is to create a community that is inspired to share, learn, and grow. I am so grateful to everyone that reached out after listening to episode 1. I had the opportunity to reconnect with people I haven't talked with in a while, and they shared part of their journey with me, which I truly loved. I also received quite a few recommendations on new podcasts, which I'll share with our community. So thank you for making something that started out scary turn into an exciting opportunity to grow. As my friend Kristen says, everything you desire is on the other side of fear, and I truly believe that. Okay, so let's dig in. In the first episode, I shared how one tiny, quiet thought led me to create this podcast. Now I want to take you back to how I started hearing more of my thoughts, and then to how I learned at my age, which we won't even talk about, how to really tune in. Because by dialing up the volume on my thoughts, I can choose what to do with them and decide if they're even true. One of the books I read is called Soundtracks, and I learned how to use 3 simple questions. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it kind? To process my thoughts. I love this framework and I'm practicing it myself. We're again going back to the beginning of the pandemic. I knew I had a lot of thoughts swirling and realized I needed to figure out what was going on. I noticed I had been functioning on autopilot for a while, and of course, again, thought it must be just me, right? Well, you guessed it, I figured out pretty quickly I wasn't on this island alone. I wasn't the only one feeling out of sorts. Seems so silly now, but our minds are so interesting, aren't they? So let's talk about autopilot. What is it and how did it impact me? Well, I'm glad you asked. Not to get too sciencey because it really wasn't my favorite subject in school, but we all have 2 parts of our brain, our habit brain and our conscious brain. There are many different studies out there that share statistics, but I'll share what I've heard most. About 60 to 70% of what we do is from our habit brain. How we think, what we say, and our actions come from our habits. So autopilot is an easy way to describe habit brain. If you think about 70% of your day being driven by habits, and you don't even have to think about anything, that has a huge impact. Because what if your habits aren't how you want to live your life? What if your habits were created from past situations and they were created to protect you? What if you don't even know why you have them because they have been part of you for so long you don't even think about them? Take a minute to think about your morning. Yeah, this morning, what did you do? Do you even remember? But you got here to this place listening to this podcast somehow. I bet your habit brain got you up, dressed, logged in, and sipping coffee or your favorite beverage. Your habit brain did that without you even thinking about it. And listen, the habit brain is important. It keeps us breathing and moving and going through life. We love the habit brain as long as the habits are what we want. And I'm sure you've guessed by now that you can choose to retrain your habit brain. I don't know about you, but I love getting ideas from all kinds of different places. During our Netflix binging, we decided to watch NCIS. Yes, all 15 seasons. Remember, we had a lot of time on our hands. Over time, I really began to love the character Gibbs and his set of rules. So I borrowed that and created Cheryl's rules. I used them with my team, but I used them with myself first. These rules started to create new habits around my thinking and also started to help me realize how important our self-talk and the words we use truly are. To give you an idea of my rules, the first one is to replace sorry with thank you. Think about what a different vibe it brings when you say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was late. You won't believe what happened, blah, blah, blah. And this vibe, thanks so much for waiting for me. My last meeting ran over a bit. It sets such a different tone and flips from drama to gratitude. One of the authors and podcasts I love is Brene. She talks a lot about how the words we use are so important and how we build connection through language. This and a few other ahas led me to another rule, which is to avoid should, have, and must. I originally heard this as stop shoulding all over yourself, which made me laugh. But I get it. When you think you should do something versus you want to do something, that really changes how you think about the entire situation. How about this example? I really should take a walk today. Or I want to go for a walk today, get outside, get some fresh air. See how that feels? I can feel it in my body. The first feels harsh and tense, while the second makes my shoulders relax and I feel calmer. Okay, so this is starting to make sense, right? The thoughts I have drive how I feel, and how I feel drives my actions. That's called the think, feel, do cycle. Yep, it's that simple. Well, okay, it's that simple in theory, but in practice, well, that, my friends, is where the work is. Although we tend to believe our initial thoughts, the great thing is we can question them by going back and asking ourselves, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it kind? And that can be a game changer. We all know that no one learns a new skill without practice, right? Remember when you learned to ride a bike? You started out with training wheels. As you practiced, you made mistakes. You might have fallen, and then you got better. And then those training wheels came off, and there was no stopping you. You practice new skills, not perfectly. I'm talking to you, perfectionists. I see you. You start to notice when you slip into old habits and you practice the new ones. So back to our sciencey stuff from the beginning, you can put new habits into your brain with consistency and practice. Cool, right? Through this work, I realized not only did I need to hear my thoughts, but I needed to recognize when I was in an all or nothing thinking pattern. I've heard over and over that making small incremental changes add up to big results, and that change takes time, practice, and consistency. One of my favorite quotes about change is by Rumi, and it says, yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself. As I wrap up, I'll leave you with one more aha. There are so many books and podcasts about these topics that it could be more than a full-time job to listen to it all. But here's the secret. It's not about how much information you can gather. It's about implementation and how you apply what you've learned. So what can you take away from today's episode that you can practice? Can you turn up the volume on your thoughts and start to notice what is true, helpful, and kind? Can you learn to recognize the think, feel, do cycle and change your patterns? What are the rules you want to incorporate into your life? We all know that change is inevitable and growth, well, that, my friends, is optional. In the next episode, I'll talk about how practicing mindfulness is helping me strengthen my thought work and helping me grow. That's all for now. Thanks for listening and make it a great day.